Welcome to this Prepare for IELTS video, and here we're going through the model answer to an essay on the topic of art and culture. It's an opinion essay. Let's have a look. These days, more and more schools focus on science and social science subjects and choose not to teach children to sing, paint, sculpt, write creatively, or dance. Should school children study the arts? So let's go through our model answer, show you some of the great language and strategies you can use to impress the examiner. And we start off with the phrase academic institutions. And this refers to schools, universities, and other places where education takes place. So it's a nice formal phrase which will impress the examiner. Thorough means detailed and careful, including everything necessary. So you can have a thorough analysis, or you can do something thoroughly. Be very careful with the spelling. It looks very similar to the word through, but there is an O, so T-H-O-R at the beginning. The curriculum is a list of the subjects studied in school and information about exactly what each subject includes. And if something is crammed, it is filled so that it's completely full or even too full. So you might say, for example, that your suitcase is crammed with clothes. There are so many clothes in it that it is almost impossible to close. If you prioritize something, you decide it's the most important thing and that you must deal with it before other things. It must be your priority. And if your decision or opinion is misguided, then it's wrong because it's based on bad judgment or wrong information, and something can be deeply misguided. Moving on to main paragraph 1, and self-expression means showing your personality, feelings or thoughts, often through arts. So people express themselves. You might have come across that reflexive verb, to express yourself. And if you have to repeat a word because you just can't think of another way, then at least try a different form. So here we have self-expression and express. So at least you're using a different form of the word there. Desperately means extremely, very much, and if you desperately need something, then you need it very much indeed. And we can make essays cohesive, so connect essays, connect inside sentences by using the word this to refer back to an earlier idea. So here we have the word this, and it refers back to the idea highlighted in blue that connects your ideas together. We can represent our ideas with examples to show the examiner we have a wide vocabulary. And examples sometimes work like this. You can see here that the essay would be okay without these examples, but you can show the examiner that you know some strong vocabulary, such as poetry and drawing and performing, and classical music, violin, physics, business studies. So this is really an exercise in improving your grade for lexical resource. We can use although or even though in sentences which express concession, and I'll explain what concession is in a second or two. Although or even though can be followed by a subordinate clause like this one. So although classes in physics or business studies can help to develop vital cognitive strategies, and then they can be followed by a main clause which completes a complex sentence. This is a complex sentence. It has a subordinate clause and it has a main clause, and IELTS examiners love complex sentences. They do not want your whole essay to be made up of complex sentences. That's really quite hard to read, but they do want you to include some. So how does although work? Concession is a bit like contrast, but not quite the same. So we have two things here. We're going to start with the main clause. They, so this is classes in physics or business studies. Classes in business studies do not offer youngsters the chance to explore new ways of interpreting their world. This is true. And now we come to the subordinate clause, and this is that classes in physics or business studies can help to develop vital cognitive strategies. This is also true. And you would think that the first clause, the subordinate clause being true, makes the main clause not true. But no, it doesn't. The main clause is still true. So a simpler example. Although it was cold, we went swimming. So it was cold is true, we went swimming is true. You would think that if it's cold, you don't go swimming. But we did go swimming. So the fact that the first clause is true, you would think would make the second clause not true, but it doesn't. And that's what concession clauses are like. And they especially work with although and even though, and sometimes with while or whilst. Now, to interpret, and this means to express or show your ideas about the meaning of something. So you can make an interpretation, and here you can interpret the world in a particular way. Connecting one main paragraph to the ideas in the previous paragraph is a really, really good way of making your essay cohesive and coherent. So here we have this point at the beginning of main body paragraph 2, and this point refers to something that we wrote in the previous paragraph. Connecting paragraphs is a great idea. A notion is a belief or idea. You can use relative pronouns and relative clauses, and they make your grammar more complex, because here we have a complex sentence. A person who understands everything from a scientific perspective can hardly be described as well-rounded and mature. So we have a relative clause in this sentence. It's a complex sentence. You have made your grammar stronger by using a relative pronoun, who, and a relative clause. A perspective is a particular way of thinking about or considering something. You might look at something from a scientific perspective, an economic perspective, the perspective of homeowners or school children or footballers. And we can combine modal verbs like can, could, might, may, should with passive forms. Here we have be described, and these can make your writing seem really formal. So it's a very good way to make your writing formal, to use a modal and a passive together, as we have done here. We can use indeed, and this adds extra information which supports what we previously wrote. So we have an idea, and then we have indeed, and what comes after indeed supports this and gives emphasis to this, maybe gives an example, maybe explains it in a bit more detail. So it's a nice word to introduce some emphasis of the point you've just made. And we can use such as to add examples, which can strengthen our point and show strong vocabulary. So such as, again, allows us to add extra vocabulary, allows us to make our point more strongly by adding support. Those can be used with a relative pronoun and a relative clause to refer to groups of people or people in detail. So those who wish to be scientists or business leaders, those who study economics at university, those who wish to make a lot of money. So this is a nice way of using complex grammar and avoiding words like people or individuals, because you don't need to. You have a more complex way of referring to them. If something is overlooked, people often fail to notice or fail to consider it at all. So one often overlooked point is a very nice way of introducing an idea which you think people don't often think about. And we can use these with a noun, and of course these we use with a plural noun. So here we have skills, and we can use this to refer to something in an earlier sentence or paragraph, or to refer to something in the title. And either way, this is great. If you use these, you are referring back to something that you wrote about earlier. You are connecting ideas in your essay. The examiner will love it. If you adore something, you love it a lot. So a good verb to have. And we can often include opposites to show how strong our vocabulary is. Maybe not exactly opposites, not completely, but words from a similar area with different meanings. So here we have 3 of them. Practical, relating to real situations, experience, or action. Technical, relating to knowledge of machines or methods used in science or industry. And theoretical, which is often an opposite of practical. And this relates to ideas and theories rather than to what happens in the real world. So knowing these groups of words and using them can really impress. Aspects are parts or elements, and try very hard to avoid repeating important words, especially in the same sentence. So if you do know the words elements, try to use it so that you don't repeat aspects. Tedious means tiring and boring. We hope this video isn't too tedious and pointless, and we definitely hope this video isn't pointless. Pointless means having no purpose or reason, being a waste of time and a waste of energy. And here we have a really nice structure, which is it plus the verb to be plus adjective plus infinitive. So it is essential to offer. It is important to know. This is a really widely used structure in English and an easy one to include in your IELTS essay. Upbringing is the way you are treated and educated when you're young, especially by your family. So they bring you up. Maybe you have a very difficult upbringing or a wonderful upbringing. Let's hope you had a wonderful upbringing. And wholeheartedly, it means strongly and completely. So you can wholeheartedly believe, you can wholeheartedly agree. These are nice collocations. Many verbs can be followed by a that clause. That clauses are a secret weapon in English. Try to learn when you can use them because they can make your writing so much better. Here we have believe that and ensure that. And you can see that using these verbs with these that clauses suddenly makes your English a whole lot better. And the verb ought to can be used to make suggestions and show that we think something is a good idea. You ought to do it. It's a good idea. A timetable is a detailed plan which shows the times and locations of a pupil's lesson. And if I was examining this at this point, I would be impressed because I would see that you understand what a curriculum is and you understand what a timetable is, and you can use both words precisely and correctly. You would get a lot of credit for lexical resource. Here is the essay as a whole. So you might like to read through it because, of course, when we finish, we hope you're going to have a go at writing this essay. But now it's quiz time, multiple choice, A, B, C, or D. Which do you think? We often something the fact that children actually love doing art. What do? We need a word meaning ignore, forget about, and it is overlook. So we often overlook the fact that children love doing art. Next question. I hated school. My teachers were boring and my classes were something. I spent most of the time asleep. We need a word meaning very boring and tiring, and that word is tedious. We hope that your classes weren't tedious. That something should not be crammed with academic subjects. There should be space for children to use their imagination. What is it that we shouldn't cram? It is, of course, the curriculum, so the list of subjects and what they contain. Next question. I something believe that teaching students to be creative is necessary. We need word and adverb meaning very strongly. Wholeheartedly. I wholeheartedly believe. Next question. We need to deal with this question from a scientific something. Well, we would like the word view. The word view isn't here. Is there a really nice academic word here? There is. Perspective. And the decision to prioritize science and social science over the arts is deeply troubling, and you'd like a word meaning a bad idea. And the word you need is, of course, misguided. It is misguided. The people who believe this are wrong. We hope you enjoyed that video. We hope that now you will have a go at that question. and use some of the great language and ideas we included. Don't forget to watch the rest of the videos in this section on art and culture. They can really prepare you for questions on art and culture in the exam. We look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you for watching.